Hey guys, have you ever wished that you had a little more camera movement in your shots? Maybe zoom in at a really important moment? Well, you don't necessarily need a camera operator for this. All you need is a tripod and FilmoraPro. Welcome to FilmoraPro. My name is Johnny, and this is our new set dedicated entirely to FilmoraPro. But if you work in Filmora 9, don't fret. JJ and Elliot will be making regular content on our channel for just that. So today I wanted to show you how you could add some realistic and energetic camera movement to your shots. I've seen this technique used by vloggers all over YouTube, and I think it's a really cool effect that can add some extra intensity to your shot. Furthermore, maybe you're shooting something narrative and you want to add a little more camera movement to add that extra oomph to it. So we'll be looking at two things today. We'll be looking at how to add some camera shake to your shots, and then later on I'll show you how you can add some zooms, pans, and tilts to your shots in a realistic way. So let's get started. Let's say we want to add some shake to our shots. This is super simple in FilmoraPro. First, let's go into the effects panel. Simply search for the shake effect and drag it into the clip. Now we can tweak what kind of shake we want to add in. For example, we could just crank up our amount and speed if we wanted it to look like an earthquake.
Hey man, did you hear about the earthquake warning?
Earthquake warning?
Whoa! Whoa!
Yeah, let's not do that. For this kind of setup, I typically prefer to set my speed pretty low, around 0.5, and then I set my amount to about 40. I like to bring my smooth value up to 100 so that there aren't any abrupt changes in the speed of the camera shake. Now I'm working with 4K UHD footage in a project of the same size, so by adding shake we'll have some of the image fall off the project. By default, FilmoraPro will mirror the edges to make this less noticeable, but what I prefer to do is to go under wrap and set both values to no. What I'll do instead is zoom in a little bit by going back up to our scale and bringing it up to about 1.05. And there we go, some nice subtle camera movement. Next up, we have dynamic camera movement. This is zooming in and out and panning and tilting around your footage. A lot of video editors let you do this to various extents, but what I like about FilmoraPro is it gives you the option to add motion blur. This makes your camera movement a lot more fluid and believable. Here's what I mean. If you look really closely at these really fast zooms and pans, the edit on the left feels really choppy and artificial. Meanwhile, the movement on the right looks a lot smoother. So let's show you how you can do this. Right here in the controls panel, I've got this clip's basic transform properties like scale and position. I'm first going to want to make sure that I've selected the display timeline button up here, which will let us see all of our keyframes we're placing. Let's scrub ahead to the part of the clip where I want to start zooming in. In this example, I'm using 4K UHD footage. This lets me zoom in a lot more while retaining enough quality for a 1080p export, as long as I don't go above 200% scale. Now don't worry if you're not shooting 4K, you can still apply the same principles here. Just keep in mind you won't want to zoom into your clip too much, or else you may start to see some pixelation. Let's set our first keyframe by clicking this circle by scale to enable keyframing. Let's also do the same for position at the same moment. Next, let's move forward about 8 frames and set a second keyframe by changing our scale value. Let's set ours to 200. And let's also set a new position keyframe by centering our subject's head. Now to do some panning. Let's move forward to where we'd like to start the camera movement, and we'll see a position keyframe by clicking this diamond up here. Next, let's move forward about 20 frames, and set a new position keyframe by moving our position in the controls panel, or by tugging this red arrow in the viewer. Let's move ahead another 20 frames and create a new position keyframe by dragging our clip in the other direction. Let's finish this off by setting a scale keyframe by highlighting scale and clicking this diamond icon up here. And finally bringing everything back to how it was before by highlighting our first position and scale keyframes, copying them and pasting them close to the end. Next, we want to make our camera movement a little more natural by selecting all of our keyframes, right-clicking, and selecting Temporal Interpolation, Smooth. This will smooth out our zooming and panning animation. Finally, let's go up to our clip's properties and check the box beside motion blur. Please note that you may not see this motion blur in the viewer unless you set your playback quality to final. This won't affect your end results when you export though. So let's take a look at that. There we go. Now if you want to fine-tune your motion, you can do so even further by going up to the graph editor icon up in the right corner of the controls panel to adjust your motion path. But if you're new to keyframing in general, I highly recommend you check out our animation tutorial series, starting with Animation 101. It goes way more in depth on how keyframes work. The more you know about animation, the more really cool things you can do in FilmoraPro. So this is a look at how you can add some realistic camera movement to your shots in post-production. Now, of course, if you can pull this off in camera, you're even better set. You're gonna get a better quality image out of it, but we can't always predict exactly what we need until we're on the editing floor. So I hope that these techniques help out. So, are there any other things you wanna learn how to do in Filmora Pro, or any questions you have about this effect in particular? Feel free to leave them in the comments below. I'd love to get back to all of your questions. If you found this video helpful, make sure to give us a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe. See ya. So, let's get started. This is totally the wrong project file.